Back. Yay.
Where is Scott?
I'm right here.
Okay, I couldn't share my screen until you got the other one off.
We're all good to go.
Okay. So, Juliet, once you get started, there we go. All right. I am so happy to be introducing my friend Juliet Clark, who is was an amazing person. She always says, what if you could determine who in your audience is your best client in 180 seconds? And that's the cool thing about Juliet Clark, who is a dynamic and sought after speaker. And she's a podcaster who spent the last 20 years helping authors, coaches, speakers, and small businesses all over the world build expert platforms. Corporate companies, startups, and author speaker incubators worldwide have benefited from Juliet's unique and massively effective method of mastering lead generation and qualification for expert status. Juliet created a platform building tool that assesses audience obstacles, generates leads, and qualifies leads for businesses. This simple technology can be used on social media, from the stage, and at workshops to build email lists and create conversations that build long-term relationships with potential clients. Her podcast, Promote, Profit, Publish, helps entrepreneurs understand how to use great tools for the coaching and small business spaces. So Juliet Clark, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm actually sharing this right now since we started the new timeline. So give me a second here.
Okay.
On my own timeline. We just started a new live stream. So thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate it. For those of you who don't know what I do, I am a marketing expert, but I work primarily with publishing and assessment marketing. And assessment marketing is what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to jump right into it. We're going to be pulling the curtain back on what your consumers want, why digital alone doesn't work, which I think Leanne Marie Webster got into a little bit when she was talking about, there are people out there who somehow are using Facebook marketing very effectively, but for most people, it is not. It's something that they end up wasting a lot of money on. And then we're going to talk about the even exchange in today's marketing. So overall, what I really want you to take away from this today is that it's really about embracing the quality of your followers over the quantity. And I say that because so many of us get really locked into the the quantity, which for me, I think is a real ego point. If you have 10,000 people who don't care about anything you do, it's probably not a good thing. If you have, 100 people who are very invested in who you are and what you sell, you're going to be much better off. So it's really about niching down and embracing that quality. So a little bit about me. I actually started out of college in traditional publishing. I worked at Price Stern Sloan Publishing and HP Books, which I have a degree in horticulture. So HP Books was a great fit, a lot of gardening books. And from there, I went on to Chiat, where I worked on the Nissan account on a regional level. And how that relates to what I do today is on a regional advertising account, it's over $1 billion in advertising funds for a company that large. Every single region of the country has a different marketing schedule for each vehicle. So to give you an example, something that would sell, a convertible would sell great in California right now, not so great in Utah. So they, within each vehicle, within each product, they actually know the demographic, the seasonal, the geographical, everything that goes on with that car so that they can advertise it in a way that sells cars. So that was probably my first introduction into how you really need to be niched down on your product. Think about it. If you went in with that attitude that everybody's my client, you probably wouldn't sell many cars in that way. From there, I moved on to Mattel Toys on Barbie and Hot Wheels. And again, a real challenge because as you see, if you have kids, you know that we sell to the kids to have them sell to the people that have the money in the family. So it's very multi-level marketing in that sense. In 2007, I wrote my first book. And I was going through a really, really ugly divorce, and I always wanted to write a mystery novel. And so I guess what I'm best known for is I killed my ex-husband in that book. So basically, I got away with murder, but it started me back into the publishing world and understanding what was going on with books. And that was a really good thing because I self-published my first book through one of the large self-publishing companies. And I realized very quickly that they were not doing what it takes to serve the authors of the world. They were very much padding their own pockets. They had a number of practices that were extremely dishonest. And unfortunately, all of these authors that were self-publishing were new to the publishing world, so they didn't realize that they were really being taken for a ride. So out of that, with my second book, I created Superbrand Publishing. And by my third book, I'd sold over 25,000 copies, and people were bringing their books to me to publish. And one thing I kept hearing over and over from those people is that they had gone to a business growth workshop of some sort, and they related to the guru in the room that their products and services weren't selling. And that person was saying, oh, it's because you don't have an expert book. Nobody knows who you are. And fortunately, at that point, I knew that this was not true. And so we created our products to build that audience first and then write your expert book. So when you think about it, at the end of the day, you're never going to make much money from a book. No matter who tells you you are, please don't believe them. Where you're going to make money is from your products and services and the big ticket items you're selling. So that's how I got to where I am today. And hopefully you'll get a lot out of this. So I want to invite you to go over and take the quiz. I know you've taken Elizabeth's, you took Tina's yesterday. You can go over to www.leadlogicquiz.com. And a few things you're going to find out from this is, first of all, you'll probably find out that you don't have a qualified lead capture strategy. And if you've set some goals for this year that you wanted more sales, that's probably one of the reasons you aren't reaching your goals. Combine that with what's going on now, and you better have a really strong lead qualification strategy in place. Otherwise, you're going to be talking to a lot of people who are not right for your product. As you're taking this too, you might also find that you're treating all of your traffic the same way. So the paradigm in digital marketing has been that, you know, we give you something free and then you get into our email drip campaign and it's one size fits all. We give you 7, we lead you to a sale, and more than likely what happens is you get to that 7, you don't buy, and then we just send you emails that you don't open. So one of the things you'll find with what I'm going to talk about today is that you can treat different traffic temperatures in different ways. So there's definitely ways that you can customize some of your content so that it really speaks to the people who are opted in with you. You might also find out that you don't love enrollment conversations when you get your results to this quiz. One of the things that happened a couple of years ago was we had a group program and we brought people into our quiz platform. For the very first time, they were actually getting leads. And we had to add an enrollment conversation piece into our trainings because people didn't know how to sell. They didn't know how to run that conversation because they hadn't actually had those conversations prior to that. So you really need to get in that space where you love enrollment conversations. And I think by the time you're done with this today, you'll find out how to really do that without being salesy and really being of service to your audience. So here's the old standard that we've been running on for years in digital marketing is I'm going to give you something free, and in exchange, you're going to give me your email address. And we've seen people do that. We've probably opted into a lot of them on our own. I'm going to give you a free ebook. I'm going to give you a blueprint. I'm going to give you you know, of some free video series. And what has resulted from that is that there are a lot of people who have opted in and they've given you an email address and nothing's ever come of it. And so that's what we're really getting rid of here, is that old lead magnet standard that just led into a drip campaign. What happened with that with our consumers is that our consumers got a lot of messaging from us. They got a piece of our genius and they got a sales pitch. And because they didn't really know us, because let me tell you, seven emails is not a relationship, we didn't sell anything. And our consumers really felt let down because they didn't have an opportunity to get to know us. And the big mistake in all that is a lot of entrepreneurs, we made it all about us. We didn't make it about actually serving the people that we set out to serve. We made it a lot about, you know, this is who I am. And you probably know some of this from the messaging you got. There's messaging out there, you know, 6 figures in 6 months and look at my beautiful house and, you know, things like that, that were really all about, look at what a great guru I am and you should sign up with me because I make money. And that's really not what consumers want in all this. And a lot of this worked. It worked for a while. It worked until people stopped opening their emails because they had tons of them in their email boxes every day and they just got tired of them. It also worked until people got over the salesy webinars. It used to be, you know, back 2014, 15, 16, you could put on a webinar and hundreds of people would show up. And you could do a real big sales ticket at the end and people would just click. It stopped working. People got tired of it. They realized that there was really nothing in it for them, that they weren't going to get the promised things that were in the sales copy. And the other thing is people quit clicking ads. If you look at the ads that are there today, I can't remember the last time I clicked on one. And in fact, I've been part of groups, and I think Elizabeth is part of this group too, the Extraordinary Women group that we're a part of. Somebody actually said, why do I keep getting all these ads? I'm so tired of these people. None of these people deliver. So people aren't clicking ads like they used to anymore. And so none of it's working. And the main piece of that is because we wore our consumers out. We just threw so much stuff at them. You know, Elizabeth was just talking about how do you elevate yourself above the noise. Don't do any of those things. Our consumers are literally worn out online at this point because there are so many messages. They don't know what to choose. And if you know anything about being overwhelmed, if you give people too many options, they choose no options. So it's really, really important that you're very intentional about what you're doing. For marketers, what happened to all of us marketers? I know a lot of you on here today are probably marketers. We ended up with dead lists, huge lists of people who are not at all interested in what we do anymore. We ended up with very low webinar turnouts and very low quality people clicking into our ads. Our next guest who's coming up commented several months ago that, and I noticed it too on the very small ads I was running, that the people that were clicking on the ads didn't look like they were interested in what we were offering at all. We couldn't figure out who was Facebook actually putting these in front of because it wasn't the people that we had targeted. So why quizzes? Lot of reasons, but most of all, it's an opportunity, if it's done correctly, to serve your community, not overtly sell to them. And I'm going to show you why here. So most quizzes, when they're done correctly, should be identifying the success principles of what you do. Many times the mistakes that marketers make is they go out and they base it on yes, no questions, things where people just move on to the next question. If you're doing it correctly, you should be able to take your product, program, or service and categorize the success principles of that along with the statements so that people can accurately see where they actually have gaps. That's how it actually serves the audience that's taking it. So what you're measuring is the consumer doing what's necessary to achieve success in whatever you teach. One of the things I get asked all the time is, well, why would people take these? Why do you have such a high success rate in a room with a take of these? And the reason is because people are there, number one, because they want information about how to get to the next level. And the way that this serves them is through curiosity, because they want to see why they're not getting there. It's easy to tell them they're not getting there, but when you can actually show them why they're not getting there, they're much more open and receptive to what you're saying about your product and service. Now, I'm going to just go through, in the writer's world, we have this concept called show, not tell. And when a writer comes in, they will show you the landscape of what's going on in the story. They don't tell the story, they show you the story. And quite, if you read a book by a really good author, you'll find that you are visualizing the characters in your mind. You're visualizing where they're at. This is the same concept. If I tell you you're not doing well in a particular area, chances are you're going to be a little bit defensive. Well, wait, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But it's not the task that makes us successful most of the time. It's actually what we're doing with the engagement on the task. So that's why people take these, is it's a measurement of what they're doing to get success. We're also bringing awareness to the consumer of what's necessary to achieve that success. If you look back, I don't know how many of you guys read a lot, but if you're reading a marketing book from 2014, 2015, even 2017, you're probably getting very old information. So if you're since marketing is always changing, you're bringing awareness through a quiz, and it doesn't matter what you do. It might not be marketing, but because so many technologies are changing every field so quickly, you're actually bringing awareness to that consumer of what it takes today in the present to achieve the sort of success they're looking for. And that is really key in all of this, because if they're reading old books or they're looking at old videos, there are a lot of experts out there who are still doing old things. So if you can bring all of that awareness to them, you're going to have an easier time showing them why they need you versus just telling them that they need you. And I think Leanne touched on this very well earlier today when she said, you know, when you meet those people and they're telling you why they're so good and how they're so good and what they do that's so good, a lot of times we just kind of roll our eyes because we hear that from a lot of people. It's much more effective if you can show people. And it's also the self-reflective piece. One of the things that I see in a lot of the quiz platforms that are out there is that they will do yes, no questions, or they'll have you do radio buttons or something like that. That doesn't offer them an opportunity for self-reflection about where they're really at in the process. And one thing we know from market research and neuroscience is that when you ask someone a yes, no question, and then they move on to the next question or statement, they've already forgotten what happened in the past. So that's why some of those quiz platforms out there don't really work, because you can't get a category and several statements on the same page. And that's really where you show them that they have a whole gap in what's going on with them. So with the self-reflection, the consumer really gets that you're showing them the shortest route to success. And I mean, if you're like me in the past, I have taken the long way on a lot of things that I wish somebody had said, you know, these are the key principles to success and this is what you need to do. Because I'm very good at following directions if someone can give me direction on what to do. And I think most people are like that, but it's kind of that wavy gravy, I'm not sure what to do next, that we want to eliminate in that. And it also gives you clarity. So when we get into what does it do for the entrepreneur, I'm just going to talk a little bit about, in the marketing world, we've had a very one-sided paradigm where we give out a lead magnet and it works for the consumer, but it doesn't really work as well for the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is getting that email, but they don't get a lot of feedback on what's going on with their marketing. They don't understand how it's working and why it's working. So using an assessment for the entrepreneur, this is sort of a two-way street. You're serving your audience because they're clearly getting what will help them move to the next level. They're getting feedback. When you use an assessment, you're actually getting feedback from your audience about where they're struggling. So why is this really key? Because a lot of people out there have programs and services that aren't selling, and it's because they haven't gotten feedback in advance. They've had a great idea, they've created something, but it's not quite the right product, or it's the right product and it's not in front of the right audience. So one of the things an assessment brings to your audience and helps you with is who you are and what you do. If you go over and take that lead logic quiz, you have a pretty good idea by the time you get to the bottom of it, exactly where you need help, who I am, and what I do. And that is missing on a lot of marketing messages, an awful lot of them. So what else does it do? Sorry about that. Skipped on. It creates a shift in how you're marketing. So when I say a shift in this, what we've engaged in the past is a lot of look at me marketing. There's a lot of me monster going on out there in the marketing world. And I hear it with people all the time. And me. I'm really passionate about this. Well, it's great that you're passionate about it, but are the people who are connecting with you as passionate about it? So it's not really all about that me marketing. And I want you to think of some examples that you've probably seen of that me marketing. And we're going to talk about a few of them in a minute. But it really takes this as a shift from let's not look at me anymore to let's take a really good look at what's going on with you, because that's what's really important in this process is serving your clients. In order to serve them, or even your potential clients, you have to know what's going on with them. So it's really taking a look at them. So what we're getting rid of here is a couple things. The look at me marketing. So you've probably seen a lot of it out there when people talk all about themselves in their marketing. Look at me, I'm so fabulous. Look at me, I have this best-selling book. Look at me, I have, these best-selling programs. Look at me and all I have. We also see, and those are the people too, by the way, where you've probably seen those videos, those 3-part videos that used to be a big big marketing piece, where it's, look at my beautiful house, look at my beautiful car, look at my beautiful wife. And yes, I think I did just steal the lyrics from a Talking Head song, but seriously, that's what we've been seeing out there. My Ferrari means that I'm a really bomb coach. Well, you could have gone down and rented that Ferrari for this photo shoot. We're not that naive. It also gets rid of that lifestyle. So that we've seen a lot of this 6 figures in 6 months and look at this amazing lifestyle I have. And, that's a lot of that instant gratification too. I actually have a gentleman who contacts me about every 3 months, and every 3 months he has a new program that I'm going to make 6 figures with in 6 months, whether it's, building a community on Facebook, I'm going to teach you how to build 6 figures from your community in 3 months. And I actually get to the point with him where every time he calls, I say, hey, can you connect me with some of those really great clients that have gotten these sorts of results? And then he goes away for another 3 months because he doesn't have any clients that have gotten those results. And he tries to sell me something else. So we're really getting rid of that kind of marketing that just doesn't feel good. It might pique your interest. It might be that next shiny object, but it's not really what's going to build you a sustainable business with clients who really you are in service for. So what we're doing with this is we're really embracing that look at you model. I want to really connect with you and find out how I can serve you best. And most of all, it's ethical enrollment. We've seen so many sales pitches out there where, a lot of us have been taught, go in with your $25,000 product when you talk to them. And then when they say no, take them down to your 15 and take them down to your 10 and take them down to your 5. And what I really, really want to talk about in an ethical enrollment is when you have an assessment and you have the results, you have a roadmap to putting them in the program that will serve them best today. And when you can do that and be present to putting them in a program where they will get excellent results, they'll get what they need, you're going to have a long-lasting audience who will come back to you again and again. I actually have a gentleman who I was on a stage back in, I want to say 2018, and he came up after I sold a $25,000 program, and he said, I want that. I'm going to write a check for you right now. And I went and I pulled up his assessment that he took, and I saw that he's not on social media. I mean, he's not anywhere. And I told him, I said, you know what, I can't take your check on this. What we really need to do is start with baby steps. I have this $497 program, and I think that's where you need to be. And that's what I'll take your money for today. And as he took that program, he came back and he bought other programs. And when he wrote me a testimonial on it, he said, you know, that was one of the best things that ever happened, because I don't think I would have done well in that big program. It would have been me just taking his money and saying, okay, got the money, don't really care about the results. So the more that you can be really intentional about your ethical enrollments, which you can use the results of these for, the better reputation you're going to have as a coach. And I think, you know, a lot of them out there don't have a very good reputation. So here's what consumers do want. And we've done a lot of studies around this. They want personal contact, especially right now. Look at where we're at right now. We are for the most part, sheltering in place. We don't want to just click. We don't want to click and have, you know, emails coming into our email box. It doesn't feel good. It feels isolated. And I think when this is all said and done, we're going to find that there are not going to be many marketers that are having getting very good results with that. We want personal contact. We want to be able to talk to people and really find out what they're all about. Conversations build trust. And somebody mentioned this yesterday about the dating. I kind of go into, I think it was Scott. I kind of go into the same analogy. If I go out on a date and I sit down with you and 30 minutes into it, you're like, oh my God, Juliet, I love you, let's get married. I'm not saying, oh my God, I love you too. I'm excusing myself to go to the bathroom. My Uber app is out. I'm, you know, got my MacGyver tools out to pry myself out of the door of the exit that's not supposed to be opened to meet the Uber driver. It feels icky. So, you know, remember in that personal contact that it's sort of like dating. You have to build a relationship. Someone has to trust. You have to talk. Our consumers also want support. They want to know that you're there for them when they have problems. And one of the things we found out, we sold an online program back in 2018, and over half the people that bought that program did not even open it. Now imagine $1,000 for a program and they didn't even open it. We picked up the phone and we called those people and said, hey, not those people, but the people who did open it. And we said, you know, hey, how did this program work for you? So number one, we were getting feedback. Number two, the feedback we got said this would have been so much better if we had some one-on-ones that you could help us with, if we had a group program on marketing. That's what we did. And that's what I encourage that personal contact for, is be in contact and provide that support. We turned around and offered those people a program where they got all of that in addition to that online program. And it's been our biggest seller to date because people have personal contact, they get answers to their questions, they get time with me, they get time with the other people in the group. And so there's a lot of support. And then the last thing consumers want are solid deliverables. And so make sure that when you're putting all this together, that you have deliverables and a contract so people know what they're getting. I don't know how many coaching programs I've been a part of where it's wavy gravy and I'm super unhappy because that sales pitch from stage was not what I feel like I'm getting as part of this program. So that's what consumers really want. But you're not going to find that out unless you really start talking to them as all of this. So you need to find out what's in this for the business owner. That's it, is really getting into the even exchange of all of this. So For the clients, it's serving your clients and building relationships with potential clients. That's so much better than an email exchange that we've been getting in the past. You're also getting clarity. For you, you're getting a pattern. You're going to see patterns within these assessments. You're going to see the patterns that are the roadmap to the next steps in your business. So what does that mean? That means when you have those categories inside that assessment, you're going to start seeing patterns where people struggle. Now, I can tell you just from the ones that came through in the last few minutes, I'm seeing them over on my computer over here. People are struggling with funnels. They don't understand funnels. That's great. Now I can turn around and I can provide content to them in those areas. Guess what else I can do? I can reach out and friend all of those people that just took that quiz over on Facebook. I can friend them on or follow them on LinkedIn, and I can drop one of my podcasts for that area right into their inbox. Hey, thank you so much for taking the quiz. Love to get together and have a conversation. In the meantime, I noticed you were struggling in this area. Here's something I hope helps. I have just served them because of the patterns I saw inside of those quizzes. So 3 keys to pre-qualification, because pre-qualification is one of those things where I used to see in real estate all the time. Somebody would come in and they would say, hey, I've got 90 leads. And I would wonder how many of those people are really people that you're putting inside of your car? How many people are pre-qualified with a lender? How many people are you actually going to sell a home to today? My group was selling 50 to 60 homes a year, which is pretty decent in the real estate world. But we didn't consider that whole bucket of leads we had pre-qualified leads. A very small percentage of those were actually pre-qualified. Now imagine we were working with those pre-qualified people while those other people were calling, hey, do you want to buy a house? And they weren't really pre-qualified. So the first key is problem solving. Is the consumer committed to solve the problem? These are things we need to know when we're pre-qualifying. Is that person really committed, or are they kind of a drive-by looky-loo? This is really the key to having a really great assessment, is being able to have people self-select where they're at in the process. So you've had that piece that's categorized and you've had them assess where they're at in relationship to success. Now here's the opportunity to go in and say, okay, you've seen that you have some gaps in what you're doing. Now let's find out how committed you are to actually solving that problem. So that's one of those things you need to get down and do a deep dive into within your assessment. The next piece is the consumer committed to investing to solve the problem. How many of you, raise your hand, be honest, how many of you guys have talked to people or you've gone out and given a talk and there are those 5 or 6 people? Scott has a name for them. I don't know if he wants to jump on and say what that name is, but they run up to the back, they run up to the front of the room to talk to you and they say, oh my God, I love what you just said, but I don't have any money. Those are the kinds of people you want to avoid. They might be people that you nurture, but you're not going to spend a lot of time on the phone with them. And I just recently had something happen with a person who was sort of on the fence about the investing piece, and she kept calling back and scheduling appointments and scheduling appointments. And I finally had to say, you know, look, only one of these appointments is free. You can't just call me and get coaching. And so you have to be really clear about those kinds of people. If they're not committed to investing, then they're not the people that you should be on the phone with all the time. And then connection. Will the consumer set an appointment? This needs to be something that's on your assessments as well. Because if they're not willing to set an appointment to talk about those things, then you shouldn't be spending time on an appointment with them. So 3 keys there, and all 3 of those are very, very important. And when we let people self-assess those and tell us, then we're still serving them. We're not calling people who don't want to be sold and trying to sell them something that they don't want or be in relationship with someone who's just not interested. So that's why we call these smart lead magnets, because there's something in it for everyone. Our consumers get an idea where they're at in the process of what you teach, and they also get to assess how committed they are to solving that problem. And for us, there are a lot of places that we can not only use those tools, but we can use these tools to assess where our audience is. So the first place, where can you use an assessment? Your content. It's crucial on every piece of content that you produce that you have a call to action. You can use the quiz as your lead magnet because it serves everybody. It's just not giving that free book away and hoping that they'll opt in and read it at some point. Podcast and radio. So one of the things that people don't realize about podcast radio, and I'm going to throw books in here as well, is that you don't actually own the stats to that piece of content. You can find it over, let's say, a podcast. iTunes owns your stats. You know that you get so many downloads a week, but if you don't know who's listening, you can't really craft your content after what they want and need. The same with radio. We actually had a woman a couple years ago who had a radio show, and it was aimed towards empowering women. And she was trying to drive people from the radio show, and she thought it was women she was trying to drive from the radio show into a Facebook group where she could connect with them, because she knew the radio station owned the stats, but she didn't really know who's listening. When we added an assessment on, we actually found out that 60% of the people listening were men. So she had to go back and change her branding, take all of that pink off, and then it allowed her to collect an entire audience. And she was able to get people into that Facebook group and onto a live event. She actually had a live event that she had a great turnout for, men and women. So it's great for doing that. Books, Amazon owns your stats. So you know that people are buying your book, but you don't know who's buying your book. So why not put that assessment inside of your book as lead capture and actually have conversations with people that are buying your books? With the podcasts, I'm on different podcasts all the time. And so I offer it as a lead magnet on the podcast. That way, I know whose audience I'm collecting people from. Now you're probably saying, well, how do you know that? I actually use the same quiz in many different places with different URLs. So I know if I use Promote, Profit, Publish on my podcast, those are people listening to my show. If I use Lead Logic quiz on someone else's, I'm collecting someone else's audience. So what we're really doing here is validating who's listening to us, who's connecting with us, who really likes the content that we have. List building. This is a way to really grow your list in an intentional way. So giving this and building your list, but then segmenting your list between that high, medium, and low commitment person. So I didn't mention back when I had those commitment questions that if you are part of our quiz today, you're actually bucketing yourself into a high commitment prospect, a medium commitment prospect, and a low commitment prospect. So how does that help me? Well, if you're a high commitment prospect, you're going to get my calendar and probably some really high value content so that we can get into that conversation. If you are a medium commitment person, you're probably not going to get my calendar link, but what you're going to get is some very nurturing content, because it may not be that you don't like what I have to say. It may be that this is the first time seeing you and you don't know, like, and trust me. So I have to get into that mode where I'm actually producing nurturing content instead of a little bit more salesy, high value content. And then there's that whole group back, that low commitment group who is never going to purchase. They're never going to do anything. They're not action takers. I think Dom talked about that yesterday, that we're going to feed you some content, but we're not going to spend a lot of time cultivating you as a client. We also, from that list building, we can see the patterns for content creation. So we can create content within our list that serves as sort of a digital listening. So now we're really intent about who's listening and what we're producing for them. Speaking's great place. So pre-live, live, and summits, there are all places inside of these for these assessments. In fact, we're really busy right now because people are saying, okay, I need this for a summit. I'm on a summit next week and I don't have that personal contact that I have from a live event. So in pre-live, ask the host to send out in emails before the event. Collect those people who took it before the event and set appointments with those people at the event. One of our clients, and I'll mention this a little later, has been doing this. She used to fly in for events and fly back out. It was in and out in a day. Now she stays and she sets appointments with those people who took the quizzes in advance. That allows her to meet personally with them at an event. And for me, a lot of times I'll go before I speak and I'll go find those people that were high commitment and say hello and do a personal outreach with them. At live events, you can actually have people take out their phones at the event, sort of just like I did with you right here on the summit, where I gave you a little time to take the quiz. It's 3 minutes, so you can put something into your talk while they're talking that is just kind of filler material, because believe me, when you're standing on a stage and you have 3 or 4 minutes of dead air, it seems like forever. And one of our really hyper clients found this out the hard way last summer because he didn't do filler material. And then you can gather them back in by asking what came up for you, because there's always that person in the room who wants to share what just came up from taking that. So what we're looking for here is real personal connection. Having an idea, putting it out in the world without feedback from real people. And by the way, real people does not count your husband or your mother or your brother, because if you're anything like my mother, everything I did was, you know, the best thing since sliced bread. I wasn't going to get an honest opinion on it. So personal connection and trust building with people who will actually buy your product. And that's what's so important right now. A click just won't do it. You need to build real trust and real relationships. Just in pre-marketing, a couple people that have used this very effectively, case study wise. Sunny is one of our paid speakers. She used this in pre-marketing. About 400 people at the event, 137 took it in pre-marketing. 30 of those were high commitment. She actually picked up the phone and spent time with each and every one of those high commitment people at the event. Her team picked up the phone and said, hey, you know, I've got these 30-minute spots. Would you like to sit down and talk? She had a lot more sales than she normally had from any event she'd done. From the stage, you can use these. One of our clients, the Matrix Capital Fund, they use this for a 20-minute talk. $2.1 million worth of real estate loans in the door. It's $21,000 income for a 20-minute talk. I would take that. That's perfectly acceptable. I would do those every day of the week if I could. From the stage, another one of our clients, Dan Clark, 61 out of 70 people took the quiz. So he gave them time. I think his is the pro speaker quiz. Out of those 61 people, 48 of them were high commitment. 15 people set appointments on the spot, and then his team followed up and with the rest of the high commitment and set appointments with many of them as well. So imagine walking off the stage and you already had 15 appointments set up with people who were interested. My authors, a lot of these people are using them not only from the stage, but they have the thank you page inside of their quiz, because there's a thank you page after you take it. That goes to their Amazon page. So what does this do for them? It sells more books, it keeps them relevant, and it keeps them up on the bestseller list because there are more eyes on your book and more people actually buying. So imagine all of this, if you could easily attract more qualified lead and approach them in a very non-salesy way, would you do that? If you could discover what your prospects want and provide content that resonates with them, would that be something that would really interest you? And also, if you could generate more revenue by building relations with qualified prospects, and the key there is qualified, would that be really valuable to you? And I think most of you would say yes. So if you're ready to use a tool that will determine who in your audience is your best prospect in 180 seconds, then I encourage you to reach out and schedule a call with us. You can go over to chatwithjuliet.com and talk to us about what this looks like. I also want to invite you, if you're not ready for a call, to go over and listen to our podcast. It's called Promote, Profit, Publish. You're probably going to see another quiz over there, so don't be shocked. But we talk with authors, coaches, speakers, and small business people about who and what they need, and bring on the latest and greatest in those fields to help you with your entrepreneurship. And then if you're not busy on Monday nights, you can come by and join Tracy Hazard and I with the Monday Marketing Mixer. We talk about relevant topics every Monday night. What's new, what's not new, what's not working, what we're doing today. So it's free. You can just jump right on. You can either register or watch us on Facebook Live. And that's it. Questions? I know I went really, really fast. Let's see if I can see the chat. Can I see that? Let's see. I love the idea. Elizabeth said oh, okay, for where they found you. Elizabeth said, I love the idea of having different names for where they found you. So,
Can you talk about that a little bit more?
what?
Can you talk about that, about having different, so it's a different URL, but the same quiz, but then you know where they came from?
Yes, so I actually have 13 different quizzes, and I use them in different capacities. So the one I'm using today on here, I would know where all that traffic came from the date, and from which quiz I used. On my podcast, I use Promote, Profit, Publish quiz. When I'm on somebody else's podcast, I use a different URL. So it's basically a cloning of what I already have with a different URL attached, so I know exactly where that traffic's coming from.
And then talk about how do you then use that information? Take us the next step.
So how do I use that information? So a couple different ways. If somebody invites me to be on a show and we're doing something with an affiliate, I can create their own URL, so I know if I make a sale from that, I owe them a commission. That's one way. The other way I use that is I can really tell a high value audience, if I'm on somebody else's podcast, summit, or radio show, by the number of people who opted in and the number and what they said inside of that. So as I'm having conversations, let's say I was on something that Elizabeth and Scott put together, and it wasn't necessarily, I didn't necessarily know if it was my ideal audience. I would look through and say, oh my gosh, Scott and Elizabeth, we need to do more together because I had such a great response from my quiz. So conversely, I've been invited to speak at events where I've gotten absolutely nothing. And when that host comes back to me the next year, you know, I'm not going to jump on a plane and rent a hotel and do all of that if I didn't get anything the previous year. So I can really gauge what is building ROI for me and what is not.
Okay, great. And also, I just lost the frame of what I was going to ask you. Talk a little bit. I've heard you talk about making positive statements versus not so positive statements, or sort of positive or negative, and rating yourself on a yes or no scale.
Oh, okay. So studies have shown when you put something on, so you've probably seen a lot of these quizzes that are out there. There are a couple platforms where they have yes, no questions, or they'll have multiple choice. When only one statement or question is on a page and you have to assess yourself and move on to the next page, studies have actually shown that once you move on, like, you don't even think about it again. So the reason I talk about that is if you look at the platform the way we use it, there are categories and there are 3 or 4 statements related to that category. Now, why is that important? Because when you get your results, things are connected together. And when they're connected like that, it's not like a yes, no, and I'm moving on. People actually have a really great picture, a visual picture of where their gaps are, instead of just, you know, how is this related to this? a lot of the quizzes that I look, and I'm taking other people's quizzes all the times, I can't even see how the statements are related. And a lot of times I'll notice that the statements are not really related to that person. It's information for the entrepreneur. It's not even serving the person that it's supposed to serve. Does that make sense?
Does this get into ethical enrollment, you were saying?
Yes. So ethical enrollment. If you have categories on your quiz where there are gaps, if you go out and you sell someone the highest level program you have, but you can clearly see from the results of that quiz that yes, they need help in those areas, but you get them on the phone and you realize they're not going to excel in that big program, that's the time to sell them something that will get them results. Because one thing I can tell you about the coaching world is if you take a course and you don't get results, you never say, oh, well, I didn't show up or I wasn't present. It's always that person wasn't a good teacher. You don't want people out there talking about your programs in that way. You want them out there saying, I got great results. I would use her again. Back before we started using the assessments, we had about a 50% referral rate. About 90% of my business is referral now. In fact, my partner on the Monday Marketing Show kind of tells me, you know, you need to do more marketing or you need to do more this and that, because I'm a little bit of a lazy marketer because I've got such a high referral rate because of that. But that's what you want people out there saying about your program. So when you enroll people in the program that's going to serve them the most and get them the best results, versus just being money hungry and selling them into, you know, the biggest thing, you're going to find that you have an audience that will refer you again and again. Is that it? Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate this. I guess we're going to take a break and then Tracy Hazard is up next.
Yes. So we've got a good 10 minutes here yet to go. So let's take our break. And Scott, are you there? Can you put our...
Yeah, we'll take a break. Sounds good.
All right.